I think you probably couldn't speak, or you couldn't hear because I was speaking, but without my microphone. My apologies for that. Welcome to you, wherever you may be in God's green garden on this Sunday, the whatever it is, 20th of November, 4 days from Thanksgiving and 35 days from Christmas. Goodness gracious. Where does it go, guys? I've got no idea. Anyway, thank you for joining us. My name's Geoff Pine, and I am a senior trader with Actions to Wealth. And they bring you each and every Sunday this weekly Sunday market update, completely free. And today will be a slightly abridged version of the norm because we do have a lot of senior traders actively sharing their knowledge in an online event currently. That said, you will have myself and you will have Ash, my trading buddy, coming up very shortly. But before we go to Ash, let's have a quick squiz at what the week looks like in terms of events. And first up, we have a few speeches with the Reserve Bank of Australia's Governor Philip Lowe having a little chat on Tuesday. Absolutely nothing happening tomorrow, apparently. And then we've got the FOMC members or the Fed members having a chat as well. Kiwi rate statement comes out on Wednesday. We've got some manufacturing figures coming out of Europe and out of the UK. And really, there's not too much more after that. FOMC meeting minutes wraps up the week pretty much on Thursday. And we go into bank holiday for the Thanksgiving on Friday for most of us, Friday morning anyway. So not a really eventful week in terms of major news. I think that's probably a good thing because we've had quite a lot of it this month and has moved the market quite substantially. Hope you've been on the good side of a lot of that movement. It's been quite a month, I'd have to say. Right, I'm going to have a quick look at the indices, the major indices, before we go any further, and then I'm going to bring Ash in, who's actually in the event online, but he has given us a recording that I'll play for you Sam will play for you very, very shortly. The dollar index appears to me to be headed towards this level, the 103.80 mark, which is going to be interesting for everything against the dollar because we've this week got a reversal bar. I think we're going to test this level, but this week it looks as though we may have a little bit of a rally on our hands, maybe back up to here. Don't mind that level there. It's been resistance and support recently, and I do see this as potential for the dollar index to go up here, which means maybe looking for shorts on things like the euro, things like the Aussie, things like the Kiwi and the CAD, the pound, all versus the dollar, of course. So that's kind of where I'm looking. That's what's in the back of my mind anyway, as I go into the week. In terms of the stock market, the S&P 500 looks to have broken through that support and resistance area here, which is around about, 3,900 mark. A little bit of a doji style or spinning top bar this week, suggesting that it may be difficult to pick direction in the short term. So I haven't really got a bias on this one. I think it's got a bit of a work to do, if you like, to get through this level here. And we're pretty much bang on it. So if I'm thinking dollar long, then maybe I'm thinking this hits this level, which has got a bit of a confluence across there as well. As you can see, strong support through here and resistance through here, which brought the last leg of that sell-off that we saw most recently. So I'm thinking this confluence area might be a good shorting opportunity, and that's what I'll be looking for early in the week, or maybe even midweek. It might take a while to get there. NASDAQ, on the other hand, very, very similar bar and very, very close also to that confluence area. So I'm probably thinking maybe a little bit before we go short again. The silver chart, however, is giving me the potential for this to go short already because we have come back below that resistance level. If it becomes support early in the week on a daily chart and effectively gives us a lower high on that reversal bar, then I think we could probably trade that back down to the bottom of the range here, which is around about the $18 or $18.20 mark, somewhere in that vicinity. That would be a good little bit of space for us to make some money. I do like that. Going from $21.25 or wherever it is at the moment down to $18 makes a lot of sense. I think that's a reasonable one to look at. Gold, a little bit less interesting in terms of a trading opportunity, but if you've been following what I've thought of gold for the last goodness knows how many months, I don't know. When I saw this big double top sitting here, the only way I wanted to trade it was short. And every time it's given us a reversal bar like that, and like that, it has gone short. Are we in a 1, 2, 3? Are we going to get a fourth phase here? Good question. But we have got there a game changer bar on the weekly. So I'm interested in that. It'll depend, of course, entirely on how the market opens tomorrow morning as to which way I want to go with this. For instance, if it gapped up, I would put an entry underneath that bar with my stop loss above it. But if it gapped short, I have to wait for it to come back. So I'm a little bit of a fan, and bear in mind, it is trading against the dollar. This is gold against the US dollar. So if the US dollar is going to rally, it makes sense this could fall away. So I'm a fan of gold short, and I'm a fan of silver short, just in different fashions. I think I'd like to see what happens in the morning when the market opens. That would be very, very interesting. All right, I'm going to come back in a little bit and have a look at the indices, which are also going to be very interesting. The currency pairs, which are also going to be very interesting. There's quite a few potential reversal bars there, as a matter of fact, and I'll go through those in the not too distant future. But in the meantime, it's been one of my great pleasures, of course, to have Ash as my trading buddy. And I'm very, very pleased to say right now, we're going to have a look and see what he's looking at for the upcoming week. Here's Ash.
Hi guys, welcome to this week's market data. We are going to talk about COT data, and we're going to talk about some seasonal data as well. So this week I'm focusing mainly on the euro, because we've seen that the euro has been very positively bought by the speculators week on week, really ever since we can go right back here and into the end of September. It just continues to be bought, but more significantly, it's right at the extremes from last week. So speculators seem very, very keen on the euro. And then looking through the other charts, the Swissy looks like probably the weakest when it comes to the COT data, but it's a fairly close run thing. So to try and find something to trade it against, I can see the Aussie also is relatively weak down here. A little bit of buying coming back in over the last month or so, but still down here nearer the lows of the last few months. So quite like the opportunity with the Aussie. And what's really kind of pushed me towards that rather than any other currency is the seasonal charts. And if we bring the seasonal chart in here, we got Euro Aussie here. And we can see the euro between around about the 23rd of November into the end of the year tends to outperform the Aussie by around about 16%, so 15.9%. We tend to see a rise in the euro versus the Aussie during this particular period. So Euro Aussie on the COT data looks good on the seasonal data as well. So if we then bring the chart in and see what kind of opportunity that gives us on the chart, which is another thing that we've got to check when we're looking at what's the best currency pair to trade. What we see here is a pattern which looks like it's forming an accumulation pattern here, an inverted head and shoulders potentially, with this being the head down here, left shoulder over here, right shoulder here, which would make this the neckline. And we're far enough away from that neckline to suggest that there is a push into that. And when you consider this horizontal level of previous support that became resistance, which is now looking like it could become support again on the weekly chart, that is suggesting that we do push up from here. So to try and get the best possible entry, we want to probably try and get above this trend line here on the daily, if we are trading on the daily time frame. But if we can get down to the lower time frames, we might get an opportunity to buy up around the monthly pivot with the stops down here at these lows, and see if we can get up to the line, potentially then break through, taking us right up to the profit taking line here. And then after taking a bit of profit, then maybe we could see if it also would be able to travel all the way through. So that's the call this week, guys, in accordance to COT and seasonals and what the charts are saying. Looks like the Euro Aussie could provide an opportunity to the long side. Have a great week.
Good on you, Ash. Ash, of course, as I said, my trading buddy, and he'll be joining me tomorrow to expand on that and a lot of other things in Trading Buddies, the show, which of course comes along on this very channel each and every Monday and Thursday. That's not a holiday, or we're not doing something else. And that is at, goodness me, what time these days? It must be 5 to 4, so 15:55 Singapore and Hong Kong. Of course, Australian time, it is 5 minutes to 7 in the evening. Righto, I'm sharing my charts of what I look at for the beginning of the week each and every Sunday or Monday morning, if I'm a little bit lazy on a Sunday. And I'm looking for game changer bars. Game changer bars, of course, are candles, bars, whatever you want to call them, that are giving me a directional bias for the week ahead. And this week, there are quite a few. I'll go through very, very quickly. I'll go through all of them, but I'll concentrate on the ones that I think are of particular interest to myself. Aussie versus the dollar. We spoke about the dollar potentially being strong this week for maybe a brief period, but maybe it's a buy for the week. That would make the Aussie versus the dollar a sell. And we do have a weekly game changer bar that suggests that that may well be the case. The level's interesting. There's not a lot of history at that level. Let me have a quick look at that. Or is there? That's the level that we're talking about right there. So it has had strong support in the past, rangy there, didn't support the market very well there. In fact, it failed. But what I do see is this low down here, and the fact that we've bounced up to that resistance level. And it does look to me as though that we're going to go into a range here for a little bit of time. Therefore, the current trend being lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, then perhaps this is a lower high, and I think short is the way to go. Then I have a think about some fundamental issues that, well, fundamental events that have over the past week or so, because of all the Asia meetings between all the leaders and the Australian Prime Minister and the Chinese President, Xi, have had an interesting conversation, which may relax, may is the pertinent word here, may relax the tension and tariffs between Australia and China. And for that reason, I've got a sneaking suspicion that if that was to come to pass, and I'm not suggesting it has, I'm suggesting it's possible, that you better keep your eye on the Aussie, because if that's the case and China relax all these tariffs that they've got on all of Australia's products, then I think this Aussie current situation, which is negative, may reverse itself. But I don't think that's today. I don't think it's tomorrow. So I think Aussie versus the dollar is a sell, and that bar could be interesting. Again, it's giving me a directional bias, and if the market opens against that, then it may give us an opportunity to get in higher. We'll see. We'll see what the market does when it opens tomorrow with all these things. CAD Swiss is probably the most interesting for me, and I would be very, very keen to trade this tomorrow if it does come up as a non-gap, if you like, put it that way. And the reason I like it is, well, let's go back into the bigger time frame. And this range that we've been in for the longest time I haven't got my time chart on that, but where does it go back to? Can't read it because I haven't got a color on it. Hang on a second. There we go. So that goes back to 2015, the 1st of the 1st, 2015. Now, those of you who have been trading for that amount of time will recognize that date as a major game changer, because the euro and the Swissy decoupled, and the massive movement in the market, which was to go thousands of pips in a heartbeat, was absolutely substantial. That's that candle there that we're looking at. Pretty much, not that it really should have done a whole lot to CAD Swiss, but of course it did. And that's where we've been inside for the longest time since that period. So we've hit the top, we've come to the bottom, we've hit the top again. My trajectory tells my trajectory indicator, which is my eye, tells me that we're headed back to the bottom of that range. And for that reason, I'm thinking short this week. Now, we have had a break of the bottom of the inner range, if you like, that rectangular box, and we have had a retest of that. Now, what I would love to see, to be fair, is price come back into here and give me a lower high, maybe at this very, very juicy, I'll call it, level, because it's got a great trade line there, or great trend line, if you like, whatever you want to call it. So a rally up to here and a failure to take out that high would really interest me. But on the weekly chart already, I think it is a break and retest. So it's a potential for this to be A, B, C down here. Again, if the market is kind and doesn't open with a big gap in the morning, I will place an order underneath this bar with a stop loss above it. Of course, if the market takes off and gives me that lower high off this trade line, then I've got a far better price. So my directional bias is short, and I will be looking to trade that tomorrow. If we don't get a massive gap in the market, we shall see. Swiss yen, I'm going to skip straight through this because I think it's just a hopeless currency pair to find a directional bias on. It looks like we've got a double top. It looks like we're going short, but I haven't got that lower high, and I've got long tails all over the place. I'll just skip straight through it. Don't want to know. Euro Aussie, Ash spoke about this, and look, I'm pretty much on board with him, I've got to say. You can see that level, and I think that's pretty much the level Ash was talking about, that we've broken through, come back and retested. I think on that level, it does look very much like a buying opportunity. You can see the double bottom sitting here. The one thing I don't see is the higher low, which is really what I significantly need to see before I trade it long. It's not there on the monthly. Is that it on the weekly? Maybe it is. But again, we've got a combination of high test bar, low test bar, high test bar, low test bar. So whilst I can see that we've failed to come back below this 153.50 level, which is strong, you can't deny that that's got a very, very strong support level, very, very strong resistance level. And now it may well be the support level that launches this off. So I'm in favor of that. I think that makes, it's the course of least resistance as far as I can see, and it makes perfect sense to be wanting to buy it there. Do I want to trade that? Look, I don't think it's the best because you're trading into a resistance area here as well. So, the size of that bar, if you were to trade it, get your stops down here and trade it straight into that high, I don't think it's the best trade in the world. Gash alluded to that by saying wait for a better buying opportunity if it retraces early in the week. And I think that's wise counsel. And I too would be looking for exactly that scenario. Of the rest, Euro Swissy is giving me a buy signal here. I'm not with that, to be fair. And the reason I'm not is this trend is super, super aggressively short. And to trade it just off that really one scenario where we've had a rally and a bit of a retracement, failed to take out the high. And that does concern me somewhat. So I would be looking really for this to break out of and give us another high, right? We need a higher high here, in my humble opinion, before this does look like a buying scenario to me. So definitely not one that I want to trade. Euro versus dollar, we spoke about that. the Aussie and everything against the dollar. Does look to be an opportunity to trade it short this week. I'd want a better scenario than this one candle. Weekly pivot's going to probably not move too far, I wouldn't think. You're going to have that level in the way, and that level there is pretty much in the way. You may be clear of it, you get underneath it, and that kind of makes sense. But what I'd like to see is price come down here, hit a resistance level, give me a lower high, then I can trade it short. But off the bat, I don't think that's a wise thing to do. Pound Aussie, it's giving me a weekly bar that's suggesting we go long again, probably directionally biased exactly in that direction. Is that the best one? You've probably got 1-to-1 before you hit the resistance level. But like I said, I think CAD Swiss is still better than that. So I'll be looking at CAD Swiss, not Pound Aussie. And that little thing about President Xi is in the back of my mind as well, I've got to say. Pound Swissy, look, again, if you look at the bigger picture here, and that's the monthly chart, you've got to see this big rejection bar. And then you've got to see a buying bar. That really didn't do too much, I've got to say. If you're buying on the back of that reversal bar, you'd reckon you'd go to a resistance level. Well, I would. That would be my summation. Now we've come back and hit another game changer bar, or even a train track reversal, or bullish engulfing, whatever you want to call it. So it does look potential to go long on the weekly chart. But again, you've got a fairly decent resistance area that you're trading into. So I still don't think that's the best. And for that reason, I'll still stick with CAD versus the Swissy rather than Pound versus the Swissy. Kiwi versus the Swissy's all about the Swissy, right? And it's the same thing, right? You've got a resistance level dead ahead. You've had one rally. You've had a failure to negate that at this point, and you've got to bounce off the monthly pivot. So it does look to be going long. I would have to agree with the directional bias. But I've also got to say that the Kiwi has had an amazing run, and you've also got to take into consideration that the Kiwi would be changed, I'll put it that way, in terms of, well, you've got to expect that the Kiwi is going to be under a little bit of pressure if they don't raise the interest rates, which happens on Thursday, I think it is Thursday morning, by the projected amount, which is 0.75%. We've already seen central banks around the planet easing off, if you like, that accelerated with interest rates. And the Kiwi is tipped to go, I think it's to 4% on the back of a 0.75 interest rate increase on Wednesday or Thursday. That may be just a little bit ambitious. So I'm thinking the Kiwi might not be the buy that it appears at the moment. It's very, very strong, I've got to say, but it may not be the one that I'd be favouring for this week. Of course, if they do raise the interest rates by 0.75 of 1%, I would have to eat my words. But I think it's got to be cautious with it. I'll put it that way. Dollar CAD, we've spoken about the dollar versus the CAD. It is a game changer bar to the buying side. Go hard if you want. It's not one that I want to trade right now. In fact, I think it's got a limited upside. And as soon as we hit a resistance area again, I'll be a seller of dollar CAD, so I don't want to trade it long. Dollar Swissy appears to be range forming and coming off the bottom of that. So I do agree with the directional bias here, but I'd want to see a higher low before I traded it on a daily chart, maybe, or a 4-hour chart even. And finally, dollar yen, one of the hardest currencies, I think, or hardest asset class or assets per se to actually catch. Does look rather like a support level has been hit right there. And so directionally, I suppose you're looking to trade this long for the week ahead. I won't be. It's just one that I just can't catch. So I'll dismiss it on that basis. But it does look like it wants to bounce up here, and maybe it goes into a range for a bit before we get the next lot of fundamental news or whatever happens next, and who knows what that might be. Right, guys, that's kind of the wrap. My favourite for the week is CAD Swissy. Now, I'm suggesting that, as I said, if there's no gap in the morning, I will place an order short underneath it with a stop loss above it. But I'm also anticipating that we might get a better price on that based on we've got a potential false break here on the daily chart from Friday. So I'm kind of torn tomorrow morning, and I'm really very keen to see how the market opens, whether I should place a long above here with my stop loss under here, or more circumspectly, if that's a word, under here, and let it form its lower high, and then I can trade it at a better price. But I would hasten to add that because we've got a bullish bar here, if this does go in this direction, it's going to go to a support level, and that support level looks to be fairly far away. So I certainly, if we don't get that big gap in the morning, that's my favourite for the week, CAD Swissy. Righto, folks, that pretty much takes us out for weekly Sunday market update. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'll be doing it all again next. No, actually, I'm not sure we're doing it all again next week. That will have to be confirmed, because there is a major event on in Bali, which of course is the Bali Trading Retreat, and that begins next week. Check your local guides, as they say in television world, on that one. I should have found out before the show, but my apologies, I'm not sure if we're on next week or not. You will be told, as I will be if I don't get off air right now. Have a great week ahead, guys, and thank you for thanking me and thanking all. Thanks for your thanks. Have a great week ahead. Bye-bye.